Welcome back to Toby Talks Golf, everybody, and say aloha to another win. Chris Gotterup, the 26-year-old from New Jersey, had just taken home his third PGA Tour victory in 3 seasons now, and what a way to kick off the 2026 Tour. Gotterup fired a blistering 64 6 under par at Waialae Country Club on Sunday to finish at 16 under on the tournament, pulling out a 2-shot victory over Patrick Rogers and Ryan Gerard. And early Sunday, he took control of this tournament. He took over the lead from Davis Riley early in the day and built a comfortable cushion off the back of 4 birdies on the front 9. He played extremely smart in those gusty Hawaiian winds, and he sealed it with poise down the stretch. There was no drama on the closing holes. It was simply just championship golf out of Gotterup, and this is huge for him. Like I said earlier, his 3rd win in the past 3 PGA Tour seasons, and now it is his 2nd win in his last 12 starts. It's a huge boost to A, his world ranking, and B, the FedEx Cup standings right out of the gate. And from the opening drive, he shot 63 on Thursday. He just looked like a guy who has arrived. He's been on tour now for a few years, and it looks like he is ready to go, ready to compete with the best of the best. Especially on Sunday, he had a lot of great bunker saves up and down, some beautiful stingers off the tee in these wins. My goodness, he could penetrate them like no other. A little Tiger Woods-esque. I won't go that far, but they were pretty. And he had the composure down the stretch. There were a couple not great shots. They weren't terrible, but not great, and he recovered from them well. And that's what's the difference between good players and stars on the PGA Tour. And he could slowly and sneakily turn into a star out here. A great start to the 2026 campaign, but also there were tons of other things going on, some leaderboard fireworks behind him. The course was extremely challenging with the wind. Jordan Spieth is still looking to rebuild his game, and then Vijay Singh still grinding it out at 62 years old. You're going to want to stick around through this one because the 2026 PGA Tour season is officially underway, and it is off to a spectacular start. So, with Toby Talks Golf, let's dive right in. All right, let's dive right into the tournament overview for the 2026 Sony Open in Hawaii at Waialae Country Club. And like we said earlier, this one belongs to Chris Gotterup, cruising to a victory on Sunday. His flawless 6 under 64, wins by 2 strokes, his 3rd PGA Tour title in 3 straight seasons. And I think, to put it simply, we have a star in the making here. Everything about his game looks sharp. This is going to be a great start to the year for him to see if he can capitalize on this momentum. But it was just textbook from the start. Nothing too flashy, just dominance all the way around. He opened Thursday with a scorching 7 under 63 to set the tone. Friday and Saturday, he just stayed in the mix, 3 under with each round, keeping him right in that mix. And entering Sunday, he trailed the 54-hole leader, Davis Riley, by 2 at 10 under. But Sunday, he came out swinging. Birdies on 2 of the first 3 holes to tie and surge ahead early. Riley then self-destructed. Bogeys and a double bogey in a brutal 3-hole stretch at number 6. And from there, the door was wide open. Gotterup made his only bogey of the day at the 4th. A tough little par 3, but got back rolling. Birdies at 7 and 9. Built that momentum heading into the back 9, where he really pulled away. A 21-footer for birdie at 12, a massive 26-footer at 13 to stretch the lead, and then that clutch 12-foot birdie on 17 with the fist bump to push it to 3 shots. He closed with a routine par on 18, bogey-free down the stretch in those key moments, and played those final holes like a guy who's been here before.
Chris Gotterup is a winner again on the PGA Tour for the 3rd consecutive season, and the first event in 2026 goes to Gotterup.
Yeah, we were talking in the car. I would have loved to, do it, and I didn't know if it would come this early. But, this is a big win for me in terms of all the other stuff that comes with it. But to kick off the year like this is really just you couldn't have drawn up any better. And hasn't really sunk in yet, but couldn't be happier about it.
One shot that I want to point out is hole 15. I think it's one of the more underrated shots of his round. He's leading by 3 at 15 under at this point. A very comfortable spot, but he dumps a 160-yard approach right into the greenside bunker, and that could have been trouble. A bogey right there brings in the chasers. Gerard and Rogers were both at 12 under, and they would have been right back in striking distance with him falling back. They make a couple birdies, but instead he splashes it out beautifully to inside 3 feet, taps in for par, no stroke given away, no momentum shift to the field. And those are the plays that separate the winners, keeping the door slammed shut when that pressure hits. Because even if you have a 3-shot lead, you're feeling the pressure. It's the first tournament of the season. You haven't really felt that pressure for 4 months at this point. And then all of a sudden, you put yourself in that spot. You don't hit the best approach shot, and you're like, uh-oh, I don't want this thing to get close. But he stays composed. He gets it down, and as we go down the leaderboard after him, Ryan Gerard closed with a 65 for solo second at 14 under. Patrick Rogers matched that 65 for third at 13 under. Robert McIntyre fired a brilliant 7 under 63 to share fourth at 12 under with Jacob Bridgman. A solid T6 at 11 under for Daniel Berger, Taylor Pendrith, and Lee Hodges, all with strong final rounds. Davis Riley was really one of the main ones who faded hard. His Saturday surge did not last through Sunday. He was 2 over on Sunday to finish at -10, tied for 9th. Siwoo Kim steady at T9. We'll talk about him a little bit later. It was a weekend where he played exceptionally well, except for the first 9 holes of the tournament. He would have won this tournament probably without those first 9 holes, but we'll get more into that. Defending champ Nick Taylor was even par on the final round for a T13 at -9, and Jordan Spieth 1 under on Sunday for a tied 23rd at 7 under, and then Vijay Singh, he grinded to tied for 40th at 5 under, and these guys battled to even get to this point. Waialae was brutal this weekend. Brutal. Winds gusting 20 to 25 miles an hour. For most of the week, those trade winds were swirling, so it wasn't even just one direction the entire weekend. They were making guessing games on start lines, on curvature, how much to take off. Even in a consistent wind, it's difficult to judge, but when you're having gusts and you don't know exactly which way the wind is swirling above the grandstands, it can get really difficult to figure out. So these guys who are able to routinely make birdies, routinely save par, had a great weekend to just build some confidence heading in to more tournaments for this 2026 season. And keeping it in play off the tee was huge, because if you kept it in play, then your wedges could go to work inside of 150 yards. That's where pretty much all of the scoring this weekend happened. The par 5s, hole 9 and hole 18, the 2 par 5s on the week were huge birdie opportunities, felt like must-make birdie opportunities. You were losing almost a stroke on the field if you didn't make birdie at those holes. And mistakes got punished quickly out here. Not everybody thrived, but Gotterup did. Again, he had elite ball striking, the best ball striking of the weekend by anyone, I think. And he was really creative with his shots, especially off the tee, to find himself in the fairways, to give him those opportunities to go up flags with wedges. And it was a perfect test to open the season: accuracy, composure, making sure your wedges are sharp. So he stamped his authority all over 2026 already. A huge congrats to him, but let's look at some of these other storylines that went on throughout the week. Nick Taylor's chase for back-to-back came up short. Again, Ryan Gerard was also chasing, just came up a little bit short at 14 under. A great late push from him to keep the pressure on until the end. But again, defending champ Nick Taylor, he was one of the ones early in the week before moving day as the cut was approaching, who was one to watch because he has closed out here before. We've seen it happen, but he really just couldn't find the spark this weekend. It was a pretty lackluster Saturday and Sunday for him. Finishing T13 is no slouch, 9 under. But, even par Sunday, just couldn't get anything really going. The flat stick wasn't too hot. And that means no back-to-back champions here since Jimmy Walker over a decade ago. But he still has some of the Waialae magic in his game. We saw it earlier in the week, and it's not a bad paycheck by any means to be going home with already. So the first win of the 2026 PGA Tour season belongs to Chris Gotterup. A huge congrats to the rising star. He puts his stamp on this moment, the Open of 2026, but we got some things heating up with the tour coming up in the upcoming weeks. We had stateside next for the American Express, and then Brooks Koepka returns at Torrey Pines the week after. Golf is absolutely back. It's heating up, and it's shaping up to be awesome. And not just the golf, the best golf is awesome. We also see some pretty interesting moments throughout the tour. I want to take a look at this really interesting moment on hole 15. Keith Mitchell here, fried egg, plugged lie, ball buried deep in the sand, a classic Waialae punishment after his approach caught the wind and just plugged. But what does he do? He doesn't try and open the face, swing really hard, and splash it out like I think most people would. Instead, he takes his club and he basically points the toe straight down, literally the end of the club, digging first, maybe a little tie spinner variation, but from the bunker. Anyways, it was super creative. It was a very creative attempt to pop it out and try and get it out of that lie somehow. Unfortunately, didn't work out. Just trickled forward a few feet and stayed in the sand. A tough break for him, but that is one of the more unique bailouts that I've seen in a while. It really shows just how creative some of these guys can be when the lie's bad, and how good they truly are, especially when they have a wedge in their hands. And guys who know how to win on the PGA Tour tend to be some of the best wedge players, and one of those guys is Nick Taylor, again the defending champion here at Waialae, and he came in hot, looking to be the first back-to-back Sony Open winner since Jimmy Walker back in 2010 to 2011. There's some pressure on a guy who has the target on his back, especially in the first tournament of the season, and Saturday really set this storyline up perfect for drama. After 54 holes, Davis Riley was at 12 under with Gotterup, Harry Hall, Kevin Roy was there at 10 under, and then Taylor was right there at 9 under, 3 back, tied with Gerard and John Perry, and the top was loaded. 4 guys in double digits under par, 10 within 4 shots, and Waialae, despite the winds being so difficult and it being really difficult to judge, is still very gettable. So you have to balance some of those attack moments. It's not the toughest course outside of the wind and the elements within it. And Taylor had every reason to believe that he could make a Sunday charge. He's proved it before. He's a winner. But he also started out his week absolutely electric. On Thursday, a bogey-free 8 under 62, shared the lead with Kevin Roy after that round, and had picked up right where he left off from last year's playoff win. He loves this place. 17 straight rounds of par or better at Waialae coming in, including a ton of rounds in the 60s, in the low 60s even, and those soft conditions early on played into his iron game, and he tends to be a certified closer. He keeps it in front of him. He's great around the greens. Friday and Saturday he kept in the mix, was right there, but Sunday it just didn't click for him. An even par final round finished him at 9 under. It wasn't a big collapse. I wouldn't even say it was a collapse. He just couldn't ever spark a birdie run that was needed to reel in Gotterup and the rest of the chasers. Riley faded hard too in that situation, but Taylor's weekend after Thursday just lacked the extra gear that it takes to win on the PGA Tour. He still grinded it out, but in the bigger picture, back-to-back is just rare, and it's rare for a reason at Waialae. It's very quirky. It's not the same day-to-day. The trade winds change everything. The course can play completely different, not just Thursday to Friday or Thursday to Sunday, but Thursday morning to Thursday afternoon, 1 p.m. on Sunday to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Everything changed, and Taylor's already shown that he can be a legit contender in 2026. That round 162 shows that his game's in as good a spot as anyone. He's got 5 PGA Tour wins, including this venue twice. Unfortunately, no repeat this time, but don't count him out next week at the American Express. This guy's got some magic in him. History says it will show up again. But one of the guys who has some magic, and it showed up a little bit this weekend, not as much as he would have liked, but known magician Jordan Spieth. Let's check in on his rebuild progress this week. He has heart. That's what Jordan Spieth has. He has immense talent, but he also has heart. At 32, he's not chasing old headlines anymore. He's not trying to be what he was in those early years where he was just dominating the tour, but he's trying to build a second act. This week at Waialae was another step for him to get into his rebuild, grinding it out. He finished tied for 23rd, 7 under on the week, a 1 under final round, but the bigger picture is what stands out. If you rewind back to last year, he had a wrist surgery at the end of 24. That procedure fixed a nagging ulnar nerve issue that had been messing with him since 23, so that's the last 3 years, and he has just been health first, trying to recover from all of that. And because he's been trying to recover from those injuries, he created some bad habits in those years. And so those bad habits, last year, he spent a lot of time working to get them out and lay the groundwork for 2026. He really wanted to make that Ryder Cup team last year. He just couldn't quite do it. But getting himself healthy, he felt like he was back to himself more this week, was really important. And again, it wasn't a perfect week. It's really hard to have a perfect week on the PGA Tour. He put it as it was, the results were, quote, mixed, slow, and non-linear. 4 top 10s in 19 events last year, including a top 4 at the Phoenix Open, and only 2 missed cuts last year. So he was consistent. He just can't elevate his game to where it was. His approach play and putting didn't let him score the way he wanted to last year, and he just really struggled to close out tournaments and rounds and really put some of those really low numbers on the board that get you to win. But this off season, 5 months off, there was no rush. He was focused on getting his hands to do what they did best. That hand path was something he was so good at in his prime, and that allows him to shape shots. And we saw him be fairly confident this week in shaping shots both with his irons and wedges, and he had a lot more control than it's felt like in some of these past years. There wasn't as much tinkering. You didn't see him, flicking at it every time he set up. And so the early signs at the Sony Open were very promising. He picked up strokes on approach after a 2 under on 68. He felt like he was controlling his approach game much better on Friday. He missed his spot a couple times, but that's going to happen. You don't have everything working every week, but it felt like significant improvement for him, and that's all you're looking for in these early tournaments. If you win, it's great, but you're just looking to be in tune and be ready to go when major season rolls around. So the philosophy is there. He knows that he's not trying to recreate 2015. That's gone, and competition's evolved, and he's evolved with it. He was very steady this week, 68, 68, 68, 69. No fireworks, but no meltdowns like we've also seen in the past. Especially in this wind, it can get tricky, but he was creative. His short game was solid. It has room to improve, but he's finding his groove back. He's figuring it out, and I think this might be a bold prediction, but I think he gets back in the winner's circle this year. He has the maturity to do it, and he's not clinging to what once was. Waialae this week for him was just another building block. Positive approach gains, steady play, a good mindset throughout the week. And if he can continue to stack more tournaments like this, the next chapter could be very, very rewarding. And a weekend that it was very, very rewarding for as well was someone who wasn't trying to rekindle old dominance either, but was one of the most feel-good stories of the week, that being Vijay Singh. 62 years young, showing the kids that he still has plenty of game left in his take. The Hall of Famer grinded to a solid 5 under showing, tied 40th on the week with his career earnings exemption he got out here. Rounds of 68, 70, 68, and 69. That is not just making it through the weekend. That was competing. He was right in it. If he had fired off a low round, he could have put some pressure on those leaders. Doesn't quite have the distance as much anymore, but he beat some big names on the board. Brian Harman, Zach Johnson, Webb Simpson, Billy Horschel, Nick Dunlap. I mean, these are guys that are really good. Tom Kim, he was outlasting them at 62 years old. That's pure grit, and a history fact for you guys is that Vijay became just the 4th player, 62 or older, to break 70 3 times in a week on tour in the last 20 years. He joins Tom Watson, who did it twice at the Greenbrier, and then Bernhard Langer, and it is the first made PGA Tour cut since the 2020 Memorial for him, so that drought has ended. He's the oldest player to make the cut since Fred Couples at 63 in the Masters. And get this, he played the weekend in his fourth different decade, dating back to his tied for 7th at the 1992 Memorial. That is 4 decades of cuts. Absolutely legendary. He used his career money exemption, like I said, to get back into the full status of a 2026 event. So he will be seen a lot more around the course for the PGA Tour. And he's one of the hardest working players in golf. He started with a new trainer last year. And he has been working on getting back to as good as he can get. He wants to compete in some of these tournaments, so don't see if you see his name floating around on the weekends again later this year. There's going to be certain courses that fit his eye the best. He was ranked 71st in driving distance this week, but around the greens, 12th in strokes gained. His touch, his experience is what kept him in it in the wind. He's not going to be able to bomb it past guys. But if there's some courses out there that reward accuracy and reward play around the greens, he is absolutely going to be in the mix. And it's always fun to hear these veteran stories. They keep the game fun. But this was honestly a season opener that was stacked from top to bottom. Let's talk about how loaded this field was for a January kickoff again. Keegan Bradley as the Ryder Cup captain was in it. Spieth returned to his form. Siwoo Kim, Adam Scott. There was a large group of guys who have some big names kicking it around early in the season, trying to get ready. And it was a lot of fun with the Century off the schedule this year. Everyone funneled here into Waialae, and it showed 4 guys were in the top 10 of the OWGR who teed it up this weekend. Russell Henley was the betting favorite pre-tournament. JJ Spawn was in it, fresh off his breakthrough in 2025. Robert McIntyre rolled in hot, and Ben Griffin rounded out the elite group. And then the big names piled on as well. Colin Morikawa tried to bring his precision iron play that he's known for. It was not his week this week. Hideki Matsuyama was out there. Siwoo Kim, he was steady as ever. Unfortunately, didn't quite get it done this weekend. A bad start to the season. 4 over through the first 8 holes for him, and then he battled back to, I believe, 9 under. So he would have won the tournament if he had just played those first 8 holes even par. Obviously, you can't play the what if game, but he is going to be someone to watch this season. Adam Scott was back in it. So it was a really fun mix of, proven winners on the tour, hungry young guns who just got their tour card getting out here, and guys who are just kind of in the middle trying to find their game, find that early momentum for the season. And it really has set the tone for a great 2026 season here. Everyone is chasing those early FedEx Cup points. They want to climb the ladder. They want to get a cushion as fast as they can. The Aeon Swing 5 is in play. Sony has the first event opening the swing to the non-exempt FedEx Cup earners to grab upcoming signature spots. The Pebble Beach Pro-Am is coming up, Genesis Invitational, Arnold Palmer, those elite fields that the best of the best are in and everyone else wants to be in, not just for the cash, but just to be competing against the best and the best. So it didn't really feel like this is kind of your usual January tune-up, people just figuring out. There was some of that, but there was real contention and real firepower on this weekend as well. So golf's back. It's firing on all cylinders. This was a really fun tournament. I hope that we have some more that come a little bit closer down the stretch. But Chris Gotterup, man, he put on a clinic out there. It was fun to watch. I was just happy to be watching golf again. So this is going to be a really exciting way to end it. But before we end this episode, let's take a look at some of the earners on this for this tournament. The cash prize, total purse of $9.1 million. Standard opener money, Chris Gotterup takes home the big check with $1.63 million for the win. Gerard in second at closing with that 65 makes him $991,000. Third place, $627,000 for Patrick Rogers. And then down the board, fourth place, $445,373 for fifth, and then it tapers down from there. But even as you go down, there's some good prize money in this one. Tied for 40, Vijay Singh pockets of decent cash. So top 10 gets you six figures. So this is one that you see why people are out playing in it, not just to tune up their game, but because there's real money to be won out here. So again, congrats to Chris Gotterup taking home that big check. He is going to be one to watch. It is going to be really fun. And there were some great rounds out there. Let's just say that. It was a real creative tournament to watch. As we look at FedEx Cup boosts, Gotterup's 500 FedEx Cup points rockets him up. Huge for playoff seedings already to have that cushion. He's in first place, obviously. It's the first tournament. And then Sony was the first kickoff event to get into the Aeon Swing 5. So Gotterup's win locks him up in some of those signature events, Pebble Beach, Genesis, like we talked about. Before we end this, I also want to touch on Siwoo Kim. I know I said in our last episode that he was one to watch for the weekend, that I think could be a guy who gets in there, sneaks in, and puts some pressure on the leaders. He didn't quite put as much pressure on as I thought. A steady week from him, tied for ninth at -10 to finish the tournament. He closed with a solid 3 under on Sunday. It wasn't quite the explosive charge I might have expected him to have this weekend. He didn't have many big mistakes either, but he shot 4 over on those opening 8 holes, and I thought that was going to flip a switch in him, and he was going to go after those leaders with all he could. It's not like he wasn't going after with all he could, but he wasn't firing as many birdies out there. But you take out those 4 shots, and he is right in it at the end of the weekend. So I think I said this earlier, but he is going to be a lot of fun to watch. He was tied 11th with 54 holes remaining, right around 7 under. He grinded it out. He is going to have a lot of success on the tour. But money talks, and Chris Gotterup is going to be the one talking until next week. He is going to have all of the bragging rights on tour, but with that is going to be a wrap on the 2026 Sony Open here in Hawaii. What a spectacular way to kick off this season. Chris Gotterup stealing the show. Morikawa struggling. Top 10 players in the world. Spieth grinding out to try and rebuild. Vijay Singh reminding us age is just a number. It was a lot of fun to see this championship golf be back in swing. And again, huge for Gotterup to win number 3, a win in each of his last 3 seasons. His trajectory is just on an upward slope from here. And yeah, golf doesn't stop. We'll be back at it Thursday as we head to the American Express. Brooks Koepka at Torrey Pines is going to be awesome 2 weeks later. So it's good. It's heating up already. FedEx Cups points are flying around, and we'll have it all right here. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Toby Talks Golf. Aloha from Waialae. Stay locked in, and we'll catch you next time.